I've been cruising with the Royal Caribbean for almost 20 years, and in that time, I've seen plenty of changes from the cruise line, including things that have been banned and even cut from the line. And today, I'm going to list some of the big ones up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. One thing I really love about going on a Royal Caribbean cruise is that it's not static. It changes, it evolves, it gets better. But with that also comes some things that maybe get removed, cut out, or simply omitted as time goes on. And there's a lot of reasons for them. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them, quite frankly, indifferent. And I got to think the other day about some of these changes that have happened over the course of my time within the cruise industry. Now, obviously, cruising has been going on for much longer than I have, so this is not going to be a total inclusive list of everything that's changed since like the 60s. What I'm talking about instead is just my own experience and my take on whether or not I actually miss them. Number one, the Midnight Buffet. Now, I'm not sure if I was around for the Midnight Buffet. I'm pretty sure like my first cruise, it might have still been a thing. But anyway, back in the day, Royal Caribbean and other cruise lines offered something called the Midnight Buffet. And I think the Midnight Buffet has been romanticized a lot more than it probably deserves. Basically, years and years ago, actually decades and decades ago, there was just not that many places to eat on a cruise ship. There was like the main dining room, and like that was it. And so Royal Caribbean and other cruise lines were like, hey, we need to offer something a little later at night. So they offered the quote unquote Midnight Buffet that offered something else. Now, in today's world, there's a lot more choices. And that's why there isn't a Midnight Buffet anymore, because you have places like Cafe Promenade or Sorrento's, or the proliferation of specialty restaurants. All of that has contributed to not needing to have a Midnight Buffet. Now, I would love a Midnight Buffet. In fact, Celebrity Cruises does a really good job of offering at least a late night buffet station open where there's at least like one thing to choose from beyond just simply pizza, but I digress. Number two, and this is a big one actually, is twice a day housekeeping. Not too long ago, Royal Caribbean cut out twice a day housekeeping for standard cabins. Suites still get twice a day, that has not changed. But if you're in a balcony, an ocean view, or in some kind of inside room, then you do not get twice a day, it's only once a day. And if you're in these kind of cabins, you get to choose whether you want it in the morning or in the evening. You'll tell your stateroom attendant which one you prefer, and then they'll come back to your cabin and service your room once a day instead of twice a day. Now, on paper, this is more of a bigger deal than I think it really ended up being. In practice, I actually don't mind this change as much as I really thought I would. Certainly, if you go anywhere on land, you're not getting twice a day service. In fact, a lot of hotels don't even offer once a day service, more like once a stay service if you're lucky. But on cruise ships, what I really just miss about the twice a day isn't the actual cleaning. It's not that we were that messy. It was just really just having the bed made. That was like the biggest thing that really was just nice to have, is the bed. If we took a nap in the daytime, then in the evening, it'd be reset for us to go into sleep. Obviously, it's more of an aesthetic thing, I think, than actually a functional aspect of it. And the other thing about twice a day service is that you would need to be out of the room in order to get it. So on sea days, if you wanted to sleep in, or if you were calling it an early night, you might actually end up being in the way, so to speak, of the stateroom attendant in terms of getting that service out there. So having experienced the once a day, do I miss the twice a day, or would I prefer the twice a day? Sure, why not? Who wouldn't want that, right? But if I'm being honest with all of you, in total practical terms, it's just not that necessary. I'm not saying it's not a cutback. I'm not saying that Royal Caribbean isn't saving money on it or skimping out on it, because they are. But again, being practical, it really doesn't have that much of a material impact as much as I thought it would, going from twice to once a day. Something Royal Caribbean cut out, so to speak, that I think has actually been a huge upgrade is they got rid of the in-person muster drill. Right when Royal Caribbean restarted cruises in 2021, they went from the in-muster drill to a virtual muster drill known as e-muster. And I gotta say, this is the best change Royal Caribbean has made in probably decades. If you've cruised today, then you know that you do the muster safety drill via the Royal Caribbean app. And all you have to do is go to your muster station so you can check in, know where it is, and that's it. Prior to that, you actually had to stop embarkation day right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And everybody had to stop what they were doing. All the bars closed down, and everybody had to go walk down to their muster station, line up single file, and it was almost always outside, and also like 1,000 degrees outside. Stand around and wait for the muster drill to occur, in which all the instructions and safety information was presented to you while you stood there, and most people were just staring into space or on their phones when they weren't supposed to be. Anyway, it was a real downer to the start of the cruise, and now that's all gone, and it's a huge upgrade. I love this change, and I can't imagine going on any other cruise line that still does the in-person muster drill. By the way, there are some that do that. Disney. Next up are two things Royal Caribbean cut out during COVID that I really don't think anybody has ever mentioned again missing. That is the ability to rent tuxedos on the ship or buy flowers on board. So these were services that were a thing up until about 2020, in which you could actually rent a tuxedo for a formal night. In order to do that, you had to go there early in order to book it. And basically, you had to book it, I think, even before the cruise, if memory serves me correctly. But you could rent a tuxedo instead of me having to pack it for you. Now, of course, that's a nice service, less to pack for the cruise, I guess. I always thought it was a little weird wearing a borrowed suit that somebody else wore. In fact, a lot of other people wore. But hey, it was a thing, and it just made, life a little bit easier, I suppose. But ultimately, I never did it, and I don't think I really missed it ever once. The ability to buy flowers on board was a way to obviously splurge and show a little special something for somebody in your cabin, right? Whether it's an anniversary or birthday, what have you. That was really the rationale for it. But I guarantee you, since this has been cut, neither have been complaints that I can ever recall ever seeing, reading, or getting from any of our readers or viewers, because I don't think anyone really cared. That got me thinking next, what are some things that Royal Caribbean has gotten rid of in terms of entertainment or activities on board? And two really stood out. Number one is the DreamWorks experience. So for a number of years, Royal Caribbean partnered with DreamWorks Entertainment to bring the DreamWorks characters to their cruise ships. This was Shrek and the characters from Trolls and the characters from Madagascar movies. And these were very popular. In fact, my kids grew up with these films. When they started cruising, the DreamWorks experience was very much at its height. And they really did love meeting Puss in Boots and Shrek and Alex the Lion and other characters on board the ship. It was fun, it was easy, and it really did highlight their cruise. But of course, they were of that age that it made sense. Now, Royal Caribbean ended the experience program, and I think partially, I suspect this was more of a mutual thing where DreamWorks was like, hey, if you want to continue this, you're going to pay us this much money. And Royal Caribbean was like, yeah, we're not going to do that. In fact, for Royal Caribbean, they saw this as an opportunity to double down on their own in-house entertainment and try to invest more internally. I think the lack of the DreamWorks experience is less impactful than you might think. At the time, it was kind of missed, but I think I was more nostalgic for it than anything else. Not to mention the fact that I feel like the DreamWorks films in general aren't as prolific today as they might have been 10 or 20 years ago, but that's up for debate. The other activity that Royal Caribbean got rid of, and there are many others besides this, the Barbie experience, inline skating on board cruise ships, but the Skypad was probably the most notable one. The Skypad was removed from all of its cruise ships recently, and while the structure is still there, the activity that was in there, which was a virtual reality bungee jump, is gone. Now, Royal Caribbean has never talked about why they got rid of it. It's been widely speculated that the reason they got rid of it is simply because people got injured on there, and they just decided that the risk wasn't worth it, and quickly removed it on board its ships. I think I did the Skypad experience like once or twice. I'm pretty sure I got nauseous on it both times, and it wasn't my cup of tea, but hey, I'm sure others enjoyed it. In fact, my kids enjoyed it too. So, it was nice to have it there. In its place, by the way, they do various activities that are not anywhere related to bungee jumping or virtual reality, but they do add different onboard activities in that space. Something else that Royal Caribbean got rid of was access to the Concierge Lounge for Diamond Plus members. So if you were a Diamond Plus member within the Crown and Anchor Society, one of the benefits you used to be able to get was access to the Concierge Lounge. And this can be a little confusing because Royal Caribbean has both concierge lounges and suite lounges. So back in the day, if you were to go back, I'm going to guess like pre-Oasis class ships, there was no such thing as a suite lounge. They're all concierge lounges. And then Royal Caribbean started building suite lounges. Now, that seems like the same exact thing, but it wasn't, because it was almost like a technicality. Basically, Royal Caribbean was saying, if it's called a suite lounge, that's not part of the benefit package, but if it's a concierge lounge, then it is. The problem was there were enough people that were becoming Diamond Plus that the concierge lounge access was getting, overcrowded. And in practice, for many years leading up to the actual cutback, Royal Caribbean would do on a sailing-by-sailing basis, basically tell the Diamond Plus members, by the way, you can't get in there because there's too many people already on this cruise that need access to it, that are actually staying in a suite, thus you're not allowed in there. So in practice, it was kind of like gone anyway, but then Royal Caribbean officially got rid of the benefit not too long ago. When Royal Caribbean made the change, I was a Diamond Plus member, so obviously it directly affected me. To be honest, I really didn't care about the change because, as I mentioned, in practice before that cutback, you weren't allowed in there anyway. On any cruise that actually had a concierge lounge and I was still a Diamond Plus member, it was very rare that I actually got access to it as a benefit because, again, on a case-by-case basis, sailing by sailing, Royal Caribbean would allow or deny the Diamond Plus members access to the lounge, and it was almost always deny. So in practice, it had been gone for years before that. It certainly was nice to be able to go in there, but ultimately it just wasn't part of my core cruise experience. And while you can make a larger argument about what benefits loyalty members should be entitled to, I'm simply going to say that this particular benefit just wasn't one that really truly resonated with me that much. and I was okay with it going away because, again, in practice, it had already been gone for a while. Next on my list is room service. Room service used to be complimentary on a Royal Caribbean cruise, and now it costs $7.95 per order. I have mixed feelings about charging for room service. On the one hand, I don't want to pay extra for something that used to be included. I get that. I'm with you on that 100%. The problem with room service is the food is not really that great. The menu has always been very limited, and the food, in my opinion, mediocre. I never once said, oh boy, I really wish I could get blah, blah, blah on the menu. I think the single best thing about room service is probably the breakfast option. And by the way, that is still complimentary for the express continental options. Only if you want hot food, they have to pay for room service for breakfast. But you can still get your cup of coffee and a croissant or something like that delivered with no fee to the staterooms for breakfast, and I appreciate that. So do I want to pay, or should anybody want to pay for room service? Probably not, although Royal Caribbean did upgrade the room service menu after they instituted the change. But by retaining the continental breakfast option as complimentary, and by the way, only charging per order, not per item, in which you could really go to town and order a lot of food for $8, I don't think it's the worst change they've ever made. And lastly, we have a couple of venues that have been removed since I started cruising. Most notably, the Champagne Bar is gone. A lot of people love the Champagne Bar. I wasn't one of them particularly, but the Champagne Bar was, well, a bar that featured a lot of champagne and cocktails like martinis and whatnot. I think Royal Caribbean's bar game has gotten a lot better. I can appreciate the aesthetics of the Champagne Bar, but the fact that it's gone, I don't really lose much sleep on. And then there's a lot of restaurants that have come and gone from Royal Caribbean. The Seafood Shack on the Oasis class ships, Portofino's, which was the original Italian specialty restaurant before Giovanni's, and I actually do miss that one. And Seaview Cafe on the Radiance class ships used to be the best place. It was a complimentary grab-and-go sandwich shop. I love that. On bigger Royal Caribbean cruise ships in the Windjammer, they had a Jade section which served up Asian fare. I remember on my honeymoon cruise getting unlimited sushi for dinner in the Windjammer, which was amazing, but obviously the quality wasn't that great, and Izumi's has been far better beyond that. And then you have Sabor, which is almost certainly on its way out. It's only on a couple ships left, but essentially it's the Mexican restaurant that Royal Caribbean developed and has since been quietly getting rid of. I loved Sabor when it first came out. I think it's been watered down since then, so its demise is less impactful because I think it's not quite what it used to be. But I really did appreciate their margarita lineup as well as their tableside guacamole. It was incredible back in the day. All right, there's my list of things that Royal Caribbean has banned and cut since I started cruising. What are things that you used to love on Royal Caribbean that have been banned or cut? Let me know in the comments below. While you're below our video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube lets you know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. We'll talk again real soon.